Hey everyone, Kevin here, and welcome back to my channel. So can we please stop trying to gamify learning? I'm just so tired of this mentality that there needs to be some form of a game in every single training or classroom out there, because having been both a teacher and now instructional designer, I can tell you that it does not work. And no, I'm not talking about icebreaker activities or similar things where you try to get learning started or gain buy in with your learners. I'm talking about constantly adding in games for both the actual learning of content and assessment purposes. Things like badges, points, leaderboards, Jeopardy type games, and things like that are what I'm actually trying to talk about here. But you might also be wondering, why does this even bother me so much? Well, to start with, it's because people are beginning to equate games with engagement and learning, which is not the case. Newsflash, just because someone is engaged doesn't mean they're actually learning. This is why I always viscerally hated apps like Kahoot, both when I was an educator and now in the corporate world. What Kahoot actually does is test how fast people can press a button rather than assessing if they actually learned the concept behind the question that was asked. For instance, video games are engaging and can absolutely teach people things. There's no argument there. But a classroom isn't a game, and at least it shouldn't be. And let me use an example. As I'm recording this, I'm knee deep in a video game called Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It is a magnificent game full of culture, bohemian medieval history, combat, and anything I could want in a game. It appeals to me directly as a historian and has a wonderful story about not only the time period, but also the choices we make in our lives. Sure, I could learn a lot about the scenery and culture from playing the game with its abundance of codex entries, but I'm not going into it necessarily trying to learn from it. I approach it from a point of entertainment first, which is not what you should be approaching a classroom or e-learning with, because that's supposed to be informative first, not just entertaining. Most instructor-led courses in self-paced learning are created to distill very complicated organizational processes or onboarding into manageable chunks that allows a learner to process the information. Games often distract learners from that process and also can stray content away from the original state of the learning objectives. As with anything, if it isn't focused or relevant to achieve the learning objective or solve the training problem, then it shouldn't be there in the first place. You will not magically get learners or students to engage with something just because you put a game in it, since everyone enjoys different games. Like my examples earlier, I would actively disengage from a meeting with Kahoot activities rather than engage with it. And I'm also sure my love of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is not shared by others who don't have a passion for history or that type of gameplay. Basically, forcing people to play a game they don't want to is a great demotivator. Not to mention, you're injecting competition stress into an environment which shouldn't have it anyway. The point of learning is to grow personally and professionally, as well as solve training problems. It is supposed to be a welcoming environment where people should have fun and enjoy themselves, yes, but not to compete with one another. Leaderboards, points, and badges only motivate people to try and outdo someone else. What you end up with are learners who are extrinsically motivated in your trainings to get the badge that says they're better or whatever, rather than having intrinsic motivation to learn new things. Now, I'm not saying that all learners are inherently motivated intrinsically, because that'd be kind of naive. But relying on games or university and company issued badges and points will never ensure learning takes place. Just look at Harry Potter for an example of this. Hogwarts had a point system that was there for fun and injected friendly competition in the background for the entire school year. And at the end of the year, whichever house had the most points had their banners in the banquet hall and some other smaller rewards. It never distracted from the actual learning the students were getting in their classes. It was just there to engage with as they pleased. Now, imagine if such a system was instead omnipresent at the school, and they always felt like they had to compete just to keep up rather than focusing on the actual learning and content. It'd be incredibly stressful and would make many people not interested in being there at all. So it'd be counterproductive, wouldn't it? Which I suppose is my overall point here. If you want to gamify some aspects of learning, then that's fine. but so long as it actually has a purpose and furthers the learner's understanding of the content, especially when most of the trainings instructional designers make as it is are very dense and jargon heavy. I mean, games are powerful tools and can be used to make learning fun or round out content. I remember I played Minecraft to teach kids about natural resources and US history back when I was a teacher, just as a random example. But I only did so because it directly related to the learning objectives. I didn't make everyone play it and instead just used it as the tool that it was. In ID, I had scenarios which pop up and ask questions of learners on something like a RISE course to do the same kind of thing, which I think is a soft and measured way of saying if they are learning the content in a small and slightly gamified way. Games or something akin to them certainly have possibilities in the L&D field, but there's a very fine line between trying to create a more engaging learning experience and instead creating a waste of time. Ultimately, if you want your learning to feel authentic, then don't be inauthentic with it and jam it full of meaningless badges that aren't recognized by anyone or force learners to play a Jeopardy game at the end of their learning for points that no one cares about and won't even mean anything within 5 minutes. As L&D practitioners, it is our job to make sure our trainings aren't what they used to say on Whose Line Is It Anyway, which was a place where everything's made up and the points don't matter. Well, guys, that's the episode for today. Keep in mind, games are fun, but they aren't always the best things for every situation and need to be used in a measured way. But thanks for listening, and please don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button to get notified about all of my new content. And as always, I've been Kevin, and I will see you in the next video.